everybody, and welcome back to another level building stream. Today I'm just going to be picking up where I left off yesterday and continuing to build my rooftops level, which was once a gray box and is now transitioning into a full level. So I will just jump right into the Endless Mission editor here. I'm going to kind of show where I left off yesterday. So yesterday, most of what I got to was replacing the gray box assets, which were just the white primitive shapes, with some high definition, thematically appropriate assets. So we turned the entrance area into like a little alleyway with a street light in there, and replaced this building with a building that actually looks like a building and not a white brick. And so today I'm going to be continuing with that and updating the rest of the level. Now, what I did yesterday was I organized my scene, which is like all my environment assets, which were just the gray box assets to begin with. I organized that into multiple folders so that I could get a better view of what I was doing. And what I might do actually is take this new building, which is just where the player respawns and starts, and move that into the entrance area folder so that that matches up with the organization there. And I might also make a folder for my lights because I started adding lights. So I'll just make a lighting folder and grab all my point lights that I did. And I'll just zoom in on one of these so we can look at it. So I added these 3 point lights to where this street light is to kind of light up this alleyway so we can see. And as I go, I'll be adding more lights to kind of set the scene and the atmosphere and make things look nice. So the next area that I'm moving into is the middle buildings. And right now you can see that's just the gray box stuff left over. Some of these I will be replacing with assets, and some of them I will just be I'll just put materials on them, which I kind of showed the process of doing that yesterday. Another thing which I want to update is the speed of these drones, because a lot of them are pretty slow, and something that one of our playtesters mentioned was that you could just run past all of them without even caring if they see you. Because even if they do see you, they can't chase you fast enough to get you a lot of the time. And you can just move faster than they're patrolling. And so it's just not very difficult to get past them. And it doesn't feel very like immersive. So as I go, I'm going to be updating that. So I think I will start with this building here. And what I might do actually is break this organization up even more, because this is still a lot of stuff to look at and I like to be very organized. So I'm just gonna make this I'll just call this building 1, and let's see, this goes in building 1, and I will, let's see what else. I think that's all of what goes here. So building 1, everything else I will organize into different groups. I'll make a folder for walkways, and I'll take these 3 walkways, which are over here. I'll put them in that group. Where did it go? Put them down here. And I'm going to hide that so I don't have to look at it. And I will make something called floating platforms. I think that's all these connexes. Oh, these 3 aren't floating. Only these 2 are. So I will go ahead and hide those. And let's do raised platform? I don't know. Just this thing. Actually, you know what? That doesn't make sense to put that in a folder. I'm just going to hide that. Oh, and another thing I can do that will make my life easier is what I did before and just hide all of the gameplay stuff. There we go. That's already a lot nicer to look at. And then I'll do building 2 for this guy, not this guy, this guy, and those. And I'll hide that. And finally, let's see, storage building. I'm going to make this platform a child of storage building because they kind of go together. And then I will just hide all of that. So now I'm only looking at building 1, and that's a lot easier for me to parse. So this is going to be very similar to what I did for the building, the first rooftop that you get up right here. And for that, I think I used city building. Let's look and see if I can just find another individual building to use for that. Now, again, when you populate the library, it can be kind of slow sometimes, so just give it a second. It should come back eventually. There we go. So we're looking for city building. Which one is it? Let me look at this. City building megastructure piece. Okay, that's what these individual ones are. And let's do piece 3. That looks like it might work for us. And I'm going to immediately move this over to building 1. And I'm actually going to take this rooftop section and unparent it so that I can just stick a material on it later. Now, these ones only have 3 sides where they have like textures that come out of them, and then the back is just a kind of blank wall. So I think I'm going to rotate this one to be turned opposite like that. And I'll put it down. And now I'm just going to scale this and get it to about the same size that my building there is. And just drag it out a bit. The most important bit of this is the top. The top, excuse me. Because that's the actual platform that the player is able to run around on. So I'm trying to scale this so that it looks decent and is roughly the same size as what I had before. So I think that's about right. Move that a bit like so. And it looks a little bit distorted because it's not meant to be at exactly that scale, but I think it still looks believable enough. I'm going to disable the gray box one. So now that just looks like a regular old building. I think it's floating a little bit. Let me move it down a touch. Needs to be a bit taller, so I'll just increase the scale. There we go. That's about right. And now I can take this rooftop and I'm just going to apply a material to this. So to do that, once again, we are looking for material manager, script that I will drag onto the object. And I'm just going to set the color to like a dark gray. And that looks fine. So now we have 2 buildings that you can kind of jump on their rooftops. And you know what? It might actually look better because the player is going to be coming from this direction. It might look better to turn that around, or it might not actually. No, that's fine. I'm just kind of considering the aesthetics of it and how it looks from the different angles that the player is going to be able to see. Because the player realistically is not going to be way over here, because there's a hazard teleporter. If you fall off the building, you just get teleported right back to this one. But the player will see it from on top of the roof over here. So this is the view they're going to get. But then again, there's other platforms out this way, so you'll be able to look back and see it like that. And I think that looks pretty much okay. So I'm going to be satisfied with building 1. And let's activate something else. Let's do maybe building 2, or you know what, let's do walkways. Yeah. So there's a couple of different things I could do here. I could just apply a texture, and that probably wouldn't look too bad. But another thing I can do, there actually is an asset, I believe. So I'm just looking at the suggested assets list, which is in the game design document, and this is linked in the task itself. And there is a walkway asset somewhere, modular walkways. And I think that might look pretty cool if I can get it looking right. So let's just give that a search, modular walkways. And I'm looking at the asset preview. That looks pretty cool. Let's just drag it out here. Now I need to scale this so that it is appropriate for the walkways I have here. So it's a little bit tricky because I have to rotate it a lot to match the way that my walkways are set up. Let's just kind of align that as close as I can get it. And I'm going to have to rotate. Oh, that's tricky. Okay. Sometimes the rotation gizmo doesn't do exactly what you want it to for the assets, but that's okay. I think that is roughly the same. And I might even scale this down just a touch, try 0.8. I just did it that way to make it even. And then I'm going to drag this so that it starts on the building, because I want the player to be able to just walk right up to it. Move that a bit. So that's at about the same level that my original walkway is. And I might need another one of these, which is okay. They're called modular walkways for a reason. So I'm just going to duplicate this. What's tricky is because they don't rotate from that same direction, I have to kind of move them in funky ways. And also what's tricky is this is not a great length, because my actual walkway ends about there, but if I have 2 of these right next to each other, it's too long. So I can just shorten that. I think it's the X. If I do 0.4, yep. Itty bitty. Hopefully that will still look okay. And just kind of drag that so that it lines up about the same. I'm going to take these and put them in my walkways group. And I'm going to take this original walkway and disable it so I can look at these better. Looks like this is a little too high. That looks about right. So I'll have to test that, but that looks kind of cool. And I'm not sure where that platform is, actually. This is the problem with organizing things crazy like me. Okay, so it's this one. I might just do this platform really quickly so that I can... Here we go. I'm going to move this one over here. And I might actually put that in with the walkways just so that I can see what I'm working with. And then this one, I have to do the same thing, replace it with a building. City building. Let's try piece 2 maybe? Or let's see what else we have to work with. Piece 4 is kind of cool. Rounded looking. I kind of wish there was one that had all 4 sides decorated, but that's okay. Let's try piece 4. And I'll stick this over here. And now I have to do the same thing. I just need this. Actually, that's interesting. Let's try and scale this and rotate it to match that platform. I think like that is going to look the best if it's rotated that way. Let's move it like this. Scale it. The nice thing about these buildings is that they scale quite nicely. They tend to look decent even if you distort them a lot, which is not always true. Let's move this up, and I'm going to have to scale that down a bit. Pull this up again. That seems about right. Just scale it down a little bit. There we go. That should be about right. And now I'm going to take that building. I'm going to move the rooftop again and take the building and disable it so it's not clipping through there. And then this rooftop, once again, I will add the material manager. This can be a little bit tedious if you're doing it like I am and leaving the original ones. Something that you could do instead is just change or just duplicate the ones that you've already modified and scale them to match the new building. But I don't mind just sticking another material on there, so I think that's fine. So anyway, we have a new building here with a walkway to it. And that looks pretty cool. Now I'm going to replace another walkway, so let's try this. Not that one, this one. And what I'll do here is I'll just duplicate this, move it to the side, rotate it. This is a lot of the process for level building with this method. If you take a gray box and then replace the gray box stuff with fully built stuff, this is a lot of the process. So if you are sensitive to tedious tasks, and by sensitive I mean you don't like them, that's something to be aware of. This may not be for you, but I think the end result is really worth it when you have a level that just looks really cool. That makes it worth it for me. So let's rotate that. It's tricky to get these about the same rotation as the originals. I think that's more or less what I want. That'll suit my purposes. So I'll take that and duplicate it and just move it out to try and line up with the last one. Move it up. to match up. Looks pretty good. And then we need another little short one, so I'll just duplicate that and set this to 0.4. And I think that's about right. I'll test that more when I actually walk through it. I'm going to do all these walkways and then test, which may not be wise. A better way to do that might be to test one at a time, but I'm feeling bold today. So let's replace this final one. I will take this, duplicate it, move it up. Oops. Rotate this one. When you're working with rotations like this, it can be a little more tricky than just scaling things. So that's a challenge that is kind of specific to this level, because something that I wanted to experiment with was varying the heights of the platforms. That resulted in this kind of challenge. So you could design for a level where you wouldn't have to worry about all these weird rotations of platforms by just not doing this. Like having things more on the same level, or using different platforms that you have to jump to rather than platforms that are tilted. And that might make it easier. But I wanted to be fancy. So I'm going to take this one. I don't think it needs to be half the size. I'm thinking more 2/3. Let's. That's more or less where it is. Put that down. Okay. So now I'll just disable this last gray box walkway. And now I can test those. They're looking pretty snazzy. I'm going to enable the rest of the buildings over here so that I have stuff to play around with. And let me do something I didn't do last time, which is save this level with a new name. Now, what I did last time was I just saved over the downloaded level, which was the gray box, and that's not necessarily a problem. I'll show you what happens if you go to the content portal, and now I look at this level, which was the one that I originally downloaded and changed. You'll see that it no longer says it's downloaded. I can't just hop in and play it anymore, and I can't just hop straight into the editor. The reason for that is I've taken something with this name and made changes to it, so I no longer have the original copy of this. If I wanted to play this gray box level again, I would have to re-download it. And if I did that, it would save it with the same name, so when I go to the editor and I go to load game, I would see two different things with the name DCH Rooftops Gray Box. And both of those could be loaded and edited, and they would work okay. It would just be confusing for me. So what I'm going to do to make that less confusing is use the actual naming convention that you're supposed to for full levels, which would be DCH Rooftops Full Level. And I will save that. Give it a minute. The more you add these like high quality, nice looking assets, the longer it's going to take to save and load, and that's okay. That's just an artifact of how it works. I also just realized that I did not enable the gameplay objects before I went to test this, so that may or may not cause problems. We're about to see. It looks like I can still move around and stuff, which is perfect. That's awesome. So that means I don't have to re-enable gameplay stuff every time I test. So this is my alley that I did last time. I'm liking the way the lights look in here. It's kind of shiny, but that's okay. So now I will hop up here. Off. Hop onto this other roof up here. And now I've got this other building I can get onto. And I've got these walkways where I can go through here. This is kind of cool looking. And that spits me out right where I need to be in there. Go back through here. They're kind of short. So I'm going through the cables that are hanging here, which it's okay. I might want to make them a bit taller. And here we go, another one, and this spits me out right on top of this other roof. So those are working just fine, and they look pretty good. I think I might just make them a bit taller so that I'm not so closed in. Okay, well that worked pretty well. Let's go back to the editor and fix them up. Once again, stay hydrated. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually select these one by one. Never mind, I don't like that idea. I'm going to do these together, take the scale tool. I don't know where oh, okay. I'm working in full view this whole time because I don't want to have to switch back and forth between views to edit things. So I just have these both selected and I have the scale gizmo and I'm just gonna make it a little taller. And that should be okay. And I'll do the same thing for these guys. And for these ones. That should be okay. So those walkways are done. Close that up. And let's try this raised platform next. Now this one's a little different. I'm going to disable this storage building so that I don't have to look at it. This one's a little different because it isn't a solid building. It's supposed to be see-through because there's going to be platforms in here that you can jump on that are floating. Which means I need some kind of structural support pillars, and then I need a platform for the top. Let's go and look at the suggested assets and see if there's anything I might be able to use. I might look at cargo dock. I'm not sure what that looks like. I think there's a pillar somewhere that might work out for me. I'm not seeing it. Oh, it might be under city accoutrements. That just has a bunch of different, like, random things that you would find in a city in it. So I might look that up. Roof block might work, depending on what that looks like. So I think I'm going to look at city accoutrements first and see if that works out for me. So city accoutrements, we have awning, balcony, railing, none of these. Concrete pillar. I think this might work for these tall bits as supports. So I'm just going to drag this over to the raised platform. Yeah, okay. I'll have to rotate it a little. I'm going to move it to the outside, actually, because that'll make it easier for me to see what I'm doing. And let's scale that to match. In general, the more uniformly you scale things, the better they will look. And what I mean by that is, if you were to set the local scale all to the same value, it will look like the original object at the same proportions, but just bigger or smaller. But when you start to get the different values, it starts to look more deformed. And some assets will tolerate that better than others. Like I was talking about the buildings, they seem to be looking okay even when I deform them quite a lot. it still looks like a building. But sometimes if you stretch things way out, they'll start looking kind of funky. So far, I haven't really come into that as an issue, but if I do, I will point it out. So I think that looks pretty good. I might rotate that just a touch to match better. There we go. I think that's looking pretty good. And so now I can just take that cube full, get rid of it. Take this city accoutrements pillar, duplicate it, move it to match the other one, like so. That looks more or less correct. And I will get rid of this cube full. And I'm leaving all of the gray box stuff in case I want to come back later and see it again. And then this cube hollow full, this is actually one single piece of primitive shape. So I could just stick a material on this if I wanted. In fact, I might do that. Let's take the material manager and put one of those fancy schmancy sci-fi materials on it. So I'm just going to filter by material. And I'll scroll down to the material manager field. Let's see what this one looks like on it. That's a little dark for me. Let's try this one. That's also quite dark. Blends in with the floor because it's the same material. How about this one? I think that looks kind of cool. I don't know why it's made out of that material, but I think it looks cool, and that's mostly what matters to me. So I'm going to leave that there for now, and if later I decide that looks silly, I don't want it to be like that, I can always go back and change it. But that's the easiest way to make that work for me. Okay, so now we have this platform working. Let's get the storage building and start replacing this. So this building is actually, it's like two parts. The foundation of it is just a big brick, essentially, so I can just replace that with a regular building piece. And then the inside, I have built this space using a bunch of individual assets, and I don't think there's going to be a good pre-built asset that will look like this or have that same space. So I'm going to do a combination of things here. For the foundation of the building, I'm going to go back to all and look for city. Do I want accoutrements or do I want building? I'm just going to scroll through these and see what I can find. Mega structure piece. Oh, city building megastructure foundation. That might work. Looks kind of cool. You know what? This might also work as a platform. If I had looked at that before, I might have put that as the platform that I just did for the raised platform, but I'm going to see if I can stretch this out and make it still look decent. So let's rotate this. And a little bit more. I'm just trying to make this match up roughly with the building foundation. That looks fairly close. So now I'll move it down and stretch it out. Now, there's a chance this one might look kind of silly when I stretch it to be a lot taller than it was originally designed, but we shall see. Make this go way up here. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, there's no floor in this building part. It's just the same floor that's the top of the foundation, which is fine for my needs. So I think I can just... Oh, I'll drag this into where the storage building folder is. And I'll take the... What is that? Did I do an oopsie? I may have called the storage building a folder when it's actually the mesh. Okay. So what I did was I parented all of these individual parts on top of the original cube that I had here. So what I'm going to do is take all of these and drag them off of the storage building, which is actually just a cube. And now I can disable that. I think that actually looks pretty good. I'm gonna leave that. And then now I do want a storage building folder, so make one. And where did it go? Kind of lost my bearings here. Middle buildings. Storage building, there we are. Take all of these and just put them in there. Okay, so we have the foundation. For the ledge around the sides, I'm just going to put a material on that. Material. And I'll just set that to that dark gray kind of color. That looks fine. And I think for the interior of this building, I'm also going to do the same thing and just put materials on the shapes. Because like I said, I don't have an asset that looks like this. It's kind of a weirdly shaped building. So I'm just gonna improvise. What I actually want to see if I can do effectively on the roof is make it almost like glass. And the way I can do that is drag Smart Material Transparent onto the material. And now I have control over the alpha. And I don't remember if I've mentioned this before, but basically the way the color model that we're using here is RGBA, and that is red, green, blue, and alpha. And alpha is how see-through something is. So at an alpha of 255, which is the maximum value that we have in this model, that is fully opaque, which means you can't see through it at all. It's just fully solid and visible. And at an alpha of 0, it's fully see-through. So completely clear, you can see right through it. And even if you set it to 0, with this material, you can kind of see the shape sometimes, but that looks pretty much see-through. I can't really see a roof there anymore. But I don't want it to be completely see-through. I want it to look kind of like glass. So let's set it about there, maybe. And we have kind of a light glass dome on it. I might even set it to be a bit more opaque than that. And it might help with the glassy look that I'm going for to set this to kind of an aqua-y tone. Interesting. That's still quite transparent. I might go a little bit more opaque than that. There we go. So you can kind of see there's a shape there. I'm hoping that when you're in here, you'll be able to see some light through there, and you'll be able to see the sky while you're inside. That's the plan. Okay, let's add materials to the rest of this. So we have this big pipe 3/4 that I used for the outside. Let's put a material manager on that. And I think that track metal siding might work for this, maybe? Perhaps. So it is looking a bit distorted because it's been stretched out really wide, but it also might work. I don't know. Not quite sure if I'm happy with that. I can always go back and change it later, but for now I think I'm going to leave it. And then each of these walls, I might do the same thing. Take this off. Wall manager, you, and a material manager on you. And now go back to materials. Let's just try track metal siding on all of them. Kind of make it match. So now it's definitely a funky looking building, which was kind of what I was going for. It does look a little mismatched with the whole foundation being very different looking from the building itself. Maybe I'll do a different material on these. Try track metal. That'll be that black grill looking thing. Try that over here. Kind of weird looking. I don't know, I might leave it for now. Can always go back later. But for now, that is my storage building. And that's where the target treasure is located. Let's see, what's next? Oh, I had some floating platforms down here. And my ideas for those are to use these Conex assets. Let's see if I can find that. Is this gonna fly around? So in the racer core game, in the endless mission, there are these flying Conexes, which will just zoom around the map in the distance, and it looks really cool. But I'm not sure if I actually have control over the way that this flies, like the direction it goes. I don't think that I do. But I also am not sure if this will actually fly around. I know it says it's a flying Conex, but it might not. So what I'm going to do... Whoop, where'd it go? What I'm going to do to test this is just put it like in a conspicuous location right there. And I'm going to save and then play. And if I see it flying around while I'm testing, then I know that it is set on a path and that I can't change that path. But otherwise, I can use it as a platform, I bet. So let's see. So I get back up here to see it, and I fell down again. Might want to change that roof because it's a little bit tricky to get up here at the moment. So I don't see it flying around. That is a good thing for me because I don't want it to fly around. I want it to be stuck where it is, and then the player can jump on it and use it as a platform. So I don't know if I can actually make this jump right here. This is not really where I want it to be. Oh, okay, interesting. So this does not have a mesh collider on it by default. That is okay, I can put one on it. So let's go back to the editor. What I'm going to do is take this flying Conex, go back into full view. I will put this in floating platforms. And then first thing I'm going to do is scale it the way I want it. So where I want these is down here. I actually want them to be a lot shorter. So I will warp. Just make this kind of smaller. Kind of hard to see with that pillar in the way. I could disable it or move it, but I'm pretty lazy. I'm just going to manipulate the camera until I understand what I'm looking at. Let's make it like that. That's roughly what I want. And now I want to put a collider on this actual flying conex. So there's a component that I can find called box collider component. And if I click and drag that onto the conex, I can edit this collider. So I need to get a look at it. First, I'm going to take the platform itself, the gray box one, and get rid of it. And then for the box collider, I can see that just barely. It's that little green cube in there. But that's not the shape I want it to be. So what I need to do is change this manually. A little bit of a hassle. Another thing that I could have done is take the gray box conex and make it completely transparent so that I would be using the collider from the original box rather than building a completely new collider. But I think this will work out if I can get it set up to be the right shape. I'm just kind of guessing values until I get it right here. Let's try 20. Is that about right? That looks like where I want the collision to be. So now I have, that should work as a platform. Let's save and make sure that it does. As I said, the load times and the save times will be longer the more you add this stuff to your level. And that is just the nature of the beast. Okay. So if I jump onto this, there we go. I can walk on it now. I will no longer go right through it. So there, and then I'm going to replace this with another one of those. And I should be good to go for this section. And once I get kind of the platforms in for these, I will shift focus to fix the drones that I have. So let's take this flying conex and just duplicate it and put it where that other one is supposed to be. Shift it down a bit. There we go. These are kind of tall. I wanted to be able to see the bottom of them. So what I might do is take the Y scale. Let me try just setting this to like 0.6? No. 7. 0.65. Do a lot of just guesswork with the values. That looks fine to me. And let me switch this one to compensate. That should be okay. And I can disable this other one. So now I've got those 2 shipping containers that I can jump onto. And this section is looking pretty decent. Let's move on to the next one. So what's left? Building 2. This one, and then I think there's one final building and some other stuff over here. So let's replace this. Something that I might do, perhaps, is be sneaky and just duplicate one of my existing buildings. But I also might not do that. I'm going to look at what buildings are available to me, and if it seems like too much of a hassle, I think there's one more building megastructure piece that I haven't used. One or two more, maybe. This one. Does this one only have a texture on one side? Yes, it does. I want it to have more than that. This one also only has texture on one side. So I think I might use piece 1 again. Or maybe piece 4. I'm kind of trying to just mix it up and make it look neat. So maybe piece 4. Try that. Whoa, that is way out in space. Move that down here. And let me move this to where it's supposed to be on building 2. Drag it down. Once again, repeat the process of scaling it to match up. I think I mentioned this a bit yesterday, but one of the reasons that designers create gray boxes is to help inform the artists about the needs for the assets. So if this were a real studio and I was actually developing this game with a team of artists, I might ask them to make their assets in these exact dimensions. And that would mean that I wouldn't have to go through this process of scaling things to match up perfectly because they would already be designed with that scale in mind. But another strategy that is equally valid is just to make assets that are very modular and can be scaled and still look good. And that's kind of the method that we're working with here. So I think that looks okay. And I can take the rooftop off of this building, take the building, disable it, and now we've got that other building there. This is starting to look kind of cool, like a series of rooftops in a high-tech city, which was the intent. And let me just put a material on this. Check the time here. Looks like we're almost at the end of this session, but I think I should have time to finish this one up. And change that to that dark gray. Looks okay. And then these are supposed to be more of those shipping containers, but less floating than these ones. Because these ones have the particles on them that are like, they're flying with this magical pink fire. But I don't want that for the ones that are just sitting on this building. So I'm going to take this flying Conex, duplicate, and I'm going to move it into building 2. And I think if I just take the effects and disable it, that makes it not look like it's flying anymore. And that works for me. Thruster frame. Yeah, that's just the bottom of it. I can leave that there. Let's take this guy and rotate him 90 degrees so that he matches up with this one. Might need to move that a bit down so that it sits on the ground. Let's see. Does that look okay? I think that's fine. And then I can just repeat that process, duplicate this, Move it over here. And get rid of this. And same for this. Unrotate it and move it over here. And there we go. That's like most of the level has been skinned effectively with these nice sci-fi assets. And it's looking pretty good. So let me save that once again. Let's see. Do I have time for anything else? We have 5 minutes. What can I do in 5 minutes? I can probably enable the gameplay stuff. And I just want to take a look briefly at... Let's start with this drone. So it's interesting that these are white because they were yellow, but that's okay. I am willing to bet that after restarting the level, it will be back to yellow. Sometimes things are funky in the endless mission, and that's just the way it is. But anyway, what I'm trying to do is make this guy go faster. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at his patrol nodes, and he has these move and rotate pairs. I can drag this out so you can see. The move node, he's set to take 3 seconds to travel between these 2 points. I'm going to set that instead to 2 seconds. And the rotate node, it takes 1.5 seconds to turn around. I'm going to set that to 1 and see how it goes. And I'll do the same for these. So 2 seconds. 1 second. And then I'm just going to save. And really briefly, just test this out and see how it looks and feels. I'm just kind of speed running. Oh, fell off it again. I think I need to change that so that it's easier to make that jump. But anyway, here goes the drone. He's a bit faster than he was before. I can jump up here. And if he catches me, he still takes the same amount of time to catch me because I haven't changed that yet. So that'll be the next thing I work on. But I get past him and jump into this Conex, grab these coins, the drone, and you can see that building with the Conexes. You can see some stuff floating off in space where I haven't put the rest of the assets in yet. Here's a little spot where you can squeeze in. I might want to put a light here because it's pretty dark with this Conex blocking the light. Hello. Catches me. Teleport back here. He flies back. And I can go in here. Another coin here where it's quite dark, so again, another good spot for lights probably. And I can go up here, another drone up here. I'm gonna jump down. You can hardly see it, but there is a platform there. Oh, I noticed something. The rooftop platform, this ledge, you used to be able to walk on it and get across to the entrance to that building, but you can't anymore. I must have moved something a bit. So I might want to change that, make that doable again, because I like being able to walk on the catwalk there. You'll notice I escaped that guy after he saw me because I hopped to a different rooftop. That is intentional. Okay. Here's that building. And you can see the sky. It kind of just looks like it's an open roof, so I might want to make that even more opaque because it doesn't look like glass, it just looks empty. There's a Teams notification, but here's the inside of this building, and it's looking pretty decent. So I think that is about where I want to be for now. So thank you very much for joining me. And the next things I'll be doing is continuing to add more assets and environment props to fill in the last section of this level, which is this area out here with the exit door. And then adjusting the drone behavior even more to make them faster and feel more risky and immersive. And then I will also be adding some more lights in to illuminate those darker spots where you couldn't really see with more street lights and things like that. So thanks again for joining me today. I hope that this was fun to watch, and I will see you next time.